it.
Sorry.
Now?
Nope.
It's got to be now.
No.
How can her laptop say yes and yours not say yes?
Go.
See?
Okay. My pocket. Everyone's in agreement at the same time. All right. This is how I'd like to conduct tonight. Hopefully this works for you. If you have a suggestion, I'm prepared to listen. But what I'd like to do is finish off the material. In other words, finish off to the end. So you understand all the pieces. You'll have them all. Okay. And then what I would like to do is answer any questions that you have about the material itself, not about the case studies, because we're going to do the case studies separately. And then what I would like to do is probably address 2 of the case studies and walk our way through. Okay. The third case study, what's it called again? The one about Slicer. I'd like to probably do that next week. He still had to do it. Did you do the other? Did you do it? I'm thinking. We'll see how long it takes. Ready to go? So it's going to be finish material, answer questions, deal with it, at least 2 of the case studies. Got it? I couldn't give us a full thing. So let's just do a quick little summary, see where we're at, okay? So your exam is going to be on contracts and only on contracts. That's clear, right? It's an open book exam, which means you can bring any written material you wish. Anything that you've got on paper, that you've put on paper, your textbook, anything you wish. Got that? And you cannot bring any electronic devices unless they're approved by me. If you have an electronic device that you feel you need, which is rare, but you might, I'll talk to you about it after class. And that's going to be on the exam. Did you get that? All right. So basically, and the problem with contracts is it's not linear. You have to know everything. You have to know it all at once. But basically, what we're going to be doing is going through and determining if all the components are necessary to create a valid contract. When we get to that conclusion, if we do, then we are going to determine that there's a contract. And then the second thing we need to do is deal with the second part, which are these things that are called clauses. And I went through these with you. They're the things that if there's one of them there, the person has a choice. It's your job to assess whether it's there and whether they would use it. Should be obvious. Okay, the fact should make it very clear whether they would want in or out, depending on the circumstances, right? And then the final thing we need to do is determine if it's performed. And in order to do that, we have to look at the... What do we have to look at in terms of performed?
The obligations terms.
Where are they?
In the offer.
Always, only, in the offer. So this is one of the reasons you have to understand what the offer is, because it'll tell you whether it's performed. If it's discharged by other means, there are 4 of those that we went through last class, right? Did we? Frustration, which means it's impossible to perform through no fault of either side. A law has ended it. A novation, which is they've come to a new agreement that's replaced the old agreement. Or a term in the contract that says if this happens, we're done. Got it? So all of this, everything we've done, is basically taking us to this point. Because this is how you end up in court, good or bad, right? This is what you could be sued for. This is what you would have to have in order to sue. So I don't care which side of the equation you're on, we're always interested in is there breach. If you breach the contract, you can be sued. you have to find that the other person's breached the contract if you want to sue them. So breach is kind of pretty important. Breach is basically the failure to do what you say when you say you're going to do it. It's not doing what the obligations say. Are you with me on that so far? You understand breach. If I said, will you buy this chalk for me for $1, and then I give you the chalk and you didn't pay the $1, that's breach. You haven't done what you're supposed to do. Are there any questions on any of that so far? Anybody? I would like one question. I'm trying to push you. Because you almost look like you have a question, do you? Yeah. Do you?
No.
All right. Okay. So now we're going to get into what this really means. And the problem with breach is that there's more than one type of breach. There are actually 3. This one is the one you've all been thinking about. This is the failure to do, or having one side fail to do what they're supposed to do when they were supposed to do it. That's breach. The problem is that there's 2 other types of breach. Okay? So what's the second? There's something called implicit breach. And when I'm telling you what they are, I'm really telling you what the test is for them. So what's the test for Express?
Did they do?
What they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it, right? Yeah, it's basically it. What and when, right? So that's basically what Express breach is. But it is exactly what you think it is, okay? So if you came across a situation where somebody does, and it was clear that this is breach, that's breach, okay? So it's basically failing to comply with your obligations under a contract. But implicit breach is different. And in order to have implicit breach, we have to have contracts with a bit of a time period. So I'm going to explain this for a minute, okay? Who am I going to pick on? I need someone. Can I pick on you? Can I? Hey, what's your name? Ian?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, I'm terrible.
Bên này.
Come Emma.
I always give you an at the end, right? All right, we'll call you Emma. Emma, if I said, I will meet you in 24 hours, and I'm going to give you this chalk, will you give me $1 for it tomorrow at 6:10?
Yes.
Okay, so we've made a deal for tomorrow. When's the earliest that she or I can expressly breach that contract? This isn't hard. When? When's the earliest she can breach the contract?
24 hours.
As soon as it's made.
No. How could she breach it? Expressly breach it. How could she breach it? When does she have to give me the $1? When?
Tomorrow.
In 24 hours. Could she breach it before that? All she has to do is give me the $1, right? So she can't breach it before. When's the earliest that I can breach the contract? Express breach we're talking now. Same time. In 24 hours, you have to meet me and give me the $1, and I got to give you the chalk. If you're not there or you don't pay, that's the earliest you can breach. If I'm not there or I don't give her the chalk, that's the earliest I can breach. I can't breach it right now, right? Because I've got until tomorrow. That's going to have to do something. But I can breach the contract earlier with this type of breach. Implicit breach is a clear indication that you will not be performing. So if I was to say, is chalk tomorrow? Yeah, I'm not going to be there. That is a breach too. And what that means is she could sue me right now. If there were a way to have court right now, if we could bring in a judge and everything else, and the facts were laid out, she would win that case right now because I breached it as soon as I make a clear indication that I will not perform. That is a breach. And why that's important is she doesn't have to show up tomorrow to see if I show up because the contract is already breached. And because it's breached, she doesn't have to perform. She can just sue. So when a person makes a clear indication that they will not be performing a contract, they have ended that contract by breach. But it's this type of breach. I want to put a placeholder in place right now. Okay? Here's the placeholder. This is the thing I'm going to have to come back to. Why would I do that? That's the placeholder. Why would I do that? Why would I ever implicitly breach a contract? Why don't I just not show up tomorrow? Why would I give her the right to sue early?
Let someone else, they can make other plans.
Hold that for a minute, though. We're going to come back. Okay? This breach is one of the more difficult ones to understand. It's called fundamental breach. It's not that hard to understand. It's just doesn't fit well into the way that I've taught this course. Fundamental breach is when there's been performance, but it's so bad that it almost amounts to non-performance. So, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pick on you. Can I have your name? Say it slowly for me. Shanake? Yeah? Did I do that? No, I didn't. All right. I'll try to. Shanake. Ready? So if I said, Shanake, I'd like to sell you 5 apples at $1 each. Would you like to buy them? And she says yes. She's going to sell them. She's going to sell them for $2. She's going to make $5. So I come up and I bring her these things. And they've got little stems on the top and they're all brown. And if you put your finger through them, all sorts of gunk comes out. Are they apples?
No, they're garbage.
No, they're apples. They're not oranges.
They're compost.
They are not oranges, are they? They are. If you have to put a label on them, they're what? Apples, right? So I go, here's your apples. And you're going to go, those are, what'd you say?
Compost?
Garbage, compost. No, they're apples. And you're going to give me $1 for them. That would come underneath this. It's performance of the contract that is so bad that it basically amounts to no performance. It's called fundamental breach. The example I've given you is not a great example, but it helps you understand it. Let me show you a real case about this, okay? So there was a real case about this where they sued and they were successful as a result of what is called fundamental breach. Okay, how many of you have ever been on a farm? Either you live there or something else, okay? How many of you have seen a tractor? And now my question is, what does a tractor do? And to give you a little hint, it only does one thing. What's a tractor do?
Pull stuff.
It does. It pulls. That's it. Right? I know you can put a bucket on the front, but forget that part, okay? A tractor is meant to pull. So, how many of you, and you don't really have to know what this is, how many of you know what harrows are? What can you describe what a harrow is?
They're those things that you drag and it makes houses of dirt up.
It's a rake, okay? It's a rake that you hook onto your tractor. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen harrows?
Yeah.
How big were they?
Ours were
How big?
big.
Were they this big?
Sure.
No, they were big. I need to know. Were they big? Were they like near the wall? Longer?
Not that big, no.
Not this big?
I don't know, just big.
Okay. So let's call that 25 feet. So this guy bought this brand new tractor, and he went to hook the harrows onto it to pull, and the tractor stalled. It wouldn't pull them. So then they went and got smaller harrows. It wouldn't pull them. Then he went and got smaller harrows. It stalled. The tractor stopped. Like this brand new tractor. So then he went gets the toy harrows that his kid has, and the tractor could pull that. Like these little tiny little things, right? So what happened is he took the tractor back and he said, this doesn't work. And they said, it's exactly what you bought, which is true. It meets the specifications that you said, which is true. It ran, it was perfect, it started off, it ticked away like a dream, it just wouldn't pull anything. Court said that's fundamental breach. It's performance that's so bad, even though it's a brand new tractor, it's so bad that it really isn't even, they didn't really even get a tractor. That's what fundamental breach looks like. So we have three breaches. Express, which is the one that you've always thought of. People don't do what they're supposed to do under the terms of the contract. We have implicit, which is when they clearly indicate that they're not going to be performing, which is a form of breach. And we have fundamental, which is everyone did what they're supposed to do, but it was so bad by one side that it amounts basically to non-performance. Are you with me? Okay. Breach is what you sue for. But loss is a more important issue in the real world. Loss is how much you're out. And there's a formula for calculating loss. I'm going to go back over here, the chalk, tomorrow. Remember? I tell her I'm not going to perform, or I don't show up, which would be express breach. What is she out?
Piece of chalk.
So what's her loss?
Piece of chalk. And time.
It's not $1. It's really important you understand that. It's not $1. She actually still has $1. So how could she be out of it? What is she out? She's out whatever she lost because I didn't deliver the chalk, which might have been she was going to draw something on the pavement with the chalk for a contract that she had that she was going to get $300. But because I don't deliver the chalk, she doesn't get that. And she doesn't sue me for $1. She sues me for the $300. And she will win, and she will get that. Because that's the way loss works. So the way that loss is calculated is, and here's the test or the formula, the amount of money it would take to put you back in the same position the amount of money it would take to put you back in the same position the amount of money it would take to put you back in the same position you would have been in if the contract had been performed. So we have to put you back in the same position as far as money goes. Did we do the bulldozer thing where I said I'm going to hire someone to do the bulldozer? Did We talked about that?
The mountain.
Right? And then it turns out that it's like this. So when I have a contract for you to remove the trees, and the trees are like this, you've got to pay me how much it's going to cost to get those trees removed. We don't look at the value of the contract. I forget how much it was, but let's just say it's like $15,000 is what we agreed to. We don't look at the value of the contract. We look at how much it's going to cost to get those trees removed. And often people think that the value of the contract, in other words, how much the number is in the contract, is all that we lose. And that's because often we're quite happy just to get our money back, right? If I get my money back, I'm walking away. I'm not fighting any further. But that's not actually how contract law works. It's the amount of money it would take to put you back in the same position you would have been in if the contract had been performed. So in this contract with the removal of the trees, you were supposed to remove the trees. You didn't because it was going to cost you too much. Now I have to get the trees removed. So I'm going to hire the helicopter at $1,000 a tree that bills $3 million. And I'm going to tell you, pay it. Because you have to pay to put me back in the same position that I would have been in if the contract had been performed. That can be very expensive. Right? But there's a little bit of a problem here. Let's say that I'm an oil baron. And every breath I take, I make $1 million. That's those. Anybody know any oil barons? Like, there are people in the world, folks, that are so ridiculously wealthy you can't possibly imagine it. Right? They're so ridiculously wealthy. Are any of them in my room tonight? I'm just checking. Okay, check. Maybe the allowance. Anyways, they will buy the most expensive everything that they can because they've just got so much money, they just don't know what to do with it. Right? And often they're the oil barons. The rich people in the oil-bearing countries that have all of these rights. Okay, so they're very, very wealthy. Okay? So let's say, in fact, this actually happened recently, is that one of them decided they were going to buy a Picasso. I think it was a Picasso. I could be wrong about that. And it was the most expensive painting ever sold, and it was something like $350 million. Let's say that the seller changed their mind and decided not to sell it. In other words, they breached the contract. How much does the oil baron sue for?
It's not a service. It's not something to perform that could create more money for them.
No, it isn't.
How to measure this?
The measurement is the amount of money it would take to put you back in the same position you would have been in if the contract had been performed. It doesn't have to be a service. If I say that I will sell you this for $5,
Okay, but if I use this to make more money?
don't worry about that. That's a part of the thing. But I'm just saying I'm going to sell it for $5, okay? But I don't. And then you have to go out and buy one for $100. What do you sue me for?
100.
The 100, right? So I want you to make sure it's not just the additional amount. That can be part of it, but it doesn't have to be. So let's go back. 350 million? No. Why not?
You would have paid that anyway.
I need you to say that differently.
Because you would have been out that amount regardless if you'd have bought the painting.
You're sort of thinking it right, but you haven't really said it right. So, how much money are you going to give the guy to put him back in the same position? This guy that's getting millions coming in every second, what are you going to do? Hand him cash and say we're square? Does he want the cash? No. There are circumstances like that where you can't fix it with money. I've got so much money I don't know what to do with it. You can't give me my money back. I don't even want, if I wanted my money in my pocket, I wouldn't have bought the painting. Right? What do I want? But you're not selling the painting. How do I get the painting? So, this gives rise to what are called remedies. Remedies are what you get when there's been a loss and a breach. When we award money, such as that is called damages. Sometimes this is called money damages. I don't care what you call it. It's a remedy is what you get when there's been a breach and a loss. However, sometimes this isn't going to work. There's only one Picasso. You can't give them money and have them go get another one. There's only one, right? So this is extremely rare. Like, folks, the amount of times that this actually gets done is probably less than 1 in a million cases. Maybe only 1 in 10 million cases. But there are circumstances in which money can't be used to fix the breach. And in those rare circumstances, a judge will order something called specific performance. This is a court order that one of the sides complete the contract. So they'll say, Picasso owner, deliver the painting to the guy. You've got 10 days to do it. Or we're throwing you in jail. This is one of the rare circumstances where you can actually end up in jail for a contract. You normally can't. We don't have debtor's prison in Canada. We don't throw you in jail because you don't pay your bills. We give judgments and then people have to collect them, right? But if the judge orders specific performance and the person doesn't, they can actually end up in jail. And they'll be held there until they say, okay, I'll go do it. Do you understand that? Got any questions? Is your question, how am I going to stay awake through this entire class? Okay, just checking. All right. I'll try and do my part. I'll sing and dance, right, if I have to. All right. So the last one is actually an even rarer thing. It's related to this. Sometimes you don't want somebody to do something like deliver the painting. Sometimes what you want them is to not do something. And that, when a judge orders that you not do something, that's called an injunction. So let me give you an example of that, okay? I'm going to wander over to here, and I'm going to tell you, I'll give you $5 if you keep this secret for the rest of your life. Ready? I'm not really going to say anything. What the hell am I going to tell you? All right. So I tell her a secret, and I pay her $5 to keep a secret. How long does she have to perform that contract for? Can she quit it after a year or two? Can she just change her mind? You can't quit a contract. So let's say you go, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm going to tell you. You can't tell my secret, right? That'll be really bad. I could go to court saying she's going to breach her contract because that would be, right?
Yes.
She hasn't done it yet, and the judge will say, you don't tell. And if you do tell, you're going to go to jail.
What if you're like under oath and it's something vital to the situation, like that you're in court for? Would you still like just take it and then get sued for it?
Yeah, breach. It's actually related to what we're going to talk about next. Can you just hold that for a minute? Are there any questions about this? Anything at all?
Maria, could you say that the last word?
I made it up.
Oh.
No, I didn't make it up. It's called injunction. INJUNCTION.
Thank you.
Got it? That's fair.
You said both specific performance and injunction can happen under very specific circumstances. Under what circumstances?
Where money won't do it.
Oh,
If they can award money, if they can calculate the loss any way at all, they will always order money damages. And normally they can. How much would it cost to put you back in the same position you would have been in if the contract performed? How much money will it take? That's what they will do almost all the time. But there are circumstances in which you can't fix it with money. It's very rare that you can't. At any cost. And that's when you get injunctions. Did I answer your question?
yeah.
Anything else? Josh, are you thinking?
Just back to when we were talking about the delivery of things and stuff, a couple of classes of whether someone was able to receive the material or whatever. If you make an agreement with a particular company to deliver something for you, even though it's for your own use, and for whatever reason they can't make it that day, they hold up your own personal project. Obviously, that's a breach.
Yeah.
Where would that, how would that get calculated in? Because it's not a monetary thing, it's more to your time and your own progress, I guess.
It'd be hard to sue for that in small claims court, right?
Right.
Because it's not, and often isn't, it's not a some cert, right? But in Queen's Bench, you would figure out what the actual loss was. You know, that you had to spend 24 hours. And it depends. You can't ever answer these questions without all of the facts, right? All the real facts. Because did you have workers standing there that couldn't work? If that's the case, then it's the value of their wages, right? It's all of
Take
it.
into account all, like you're saying, take into account all the facts, and you can take that to court. And present
Yeah. You
Okay.
can. Are you with me on that so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Out of the concepts in this course, in contracts, this final little piece, again, is probably the most important when it comes to real life. The practical aspect of contracts. It's the most important. And what it is, it's called the duty to mitigate. And it's going to answer the question, why would I do this? Remember that one? I told you I want you to hold on to that. So if I make a deal with Emma to sell her this chalk tomorrow at 10 after 6, and we make a contract and we're in there and it's cement, and we're in agreement, and I say, I'm not going to be here tomorrow, I'm indicating I'm going to breach. That's a breach. She can sue me. But the innocent party in a contract is not allowed to sit back and do nothing and let the damage roll in and then come after me for it all. We're not allowed to do that. Even though she's done nothing wrong, there's a legal obligation on her, and it's called the duty to mitigate. Mitigate is lessen. The duty to mitigate damages. So when she knows I'm not going to be there, she has to take steps to reduce her loss. Reasonable steps to reduce her loss. So if I said I'm going to give her I was going to deliver a piece of chalk tomorrow for $1, and now I tell her I'm not going to be there, what would it be reasonable to expect her to do?
Find another supplier.
Find another supplier. So if she calls up you and says, do you have any chalk? Because you're a chalk supplier. Believe it or not, you are now. Okay? And you say, yeah, I got tons. And she goes, how much is it? And she goes, it's $3. She buys the chalk for $3. And what does she sue me for? What's her loss? Put her back in the same position she would have been if the contract had been performed. If the contract had been performed, she would have a piece of chalk for $1. But she had to get it for $3. The contract is performed. What is she out? $2. And if people don't mitigate, the plaintiff doesn't mitigate, what the defendant will sometimes do is prove that they could have mitigated, show how, and if they could have and they don't, and they had $1 million loss, but it could have been $10,000, if only they'd taken some reasonable steps, the judge will only order you to pay the amount that you would have had if you'd taken the reasonable steps, because it's a duty to mitigate. You need to understand this, folks. Breach is not immoral. It's often a business decision. Let me give you an example here, folks, okay? I'll just draw this out. Let's say you have a contract and you have to pay someone $10,000 right here. Okay? What day is that? Quick one. What day? What day is it? Quick.
27.
You have to make one up. 27th. Of what month? What month? What month is it? Quick.
March.
So you're supposed to pay someone $10,000 on this day. Do you understand that? That's what the contract says. There's supposed to be $10,000 paid. And you're all set to pay it. You got the $10,000. You just wait until the 27th. And someone contacts you and says, we have a sweet deal for you. We will sell you something that is normally $100,000 that you could really use for $10,000. But you got to pay us right now. And you take this money and you pay for this contract there. Because you know that if you buy that thing, you're going to be able to make $20,000 on April 5th. Here's the question. Do you buy the thing here and breach this contract?
Yes.
Do you? Do you spend, well, you're going to save yourself $90,000 by buying it. You're going to breach that. How much is it going to cost you to breach that contract? No. How much is it going to cost you to breach that contract? Let's go back and look at it from this person's perspective. They sue you for breach. What are they out? No, you're going to pay them the $10,000. You're just going to pay them on the 5th. Are they out the $10,000? What are they out? What?
Whatever they're going to earn from that $10,000 on the 27th.
And this is calculated on the basis, you almost said, it's the time value of money, folks. The time value of money. Because how do they mitigate? If they needed $10,000, how would they mitigate it? They'd go borrow it from the bank. And then they'd have to pay. So what are they out? 8 days worth of interest at $10,000. How much is that going to be?
Depends on the market rate.
Guess.
50%.
What?
50%.
Who's lending you your money?
15, not 50.
How much is 10,000 over 8 days, folks? I guess it'd be about $20. So you can save $90,000 by paying $20. Do you do that?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that, folks. There's nothing wrong with breaching contracts. I mean, yeah, you can argue the morals of it, that you should always do what you're supposed to do, like your mom said. But in business, sometimes you have to make business decisions. And sometimes the business decision is, I will pay you for your loss. That's the moral thing. You're doing something moral. I'm going to pay you for your loss. But I'm going to make a business decision right now. Something to keep in mind. Nothing wrong with breaching contracts. It does require you to pay for the loss. Sometimes the loss is okay. So let me just walk you through, okay? Let's say that I am going to supply you with sugar. You're the Pepsi-Cola plant. No, Coke. We have a Coke. Coke? What the hell's that plant out there? Is it Coke? There's 2 Coke plants?
It's Coke distributor and Coke that does.
Coke is fertilizer and the Coca-Cola is just a distributor.
Okay. Yeah, there's 2 Coke plants. So let's say that it's not a distributor, it's going to be a thing, and they want sugar because they take 10,000 pounds of sugar and at $1 a pound, and they make like $10 zillion off that sugar by adding a little flavored water to it, and you people spend all your money on it. Okay, so you say that you will deliver 10,000 pounds of sugar at $1 a pound. Monday morning at 9. And then somebody offers you 20 grand and you say, I'm going to do that. And you don't deliver it. Have you breached?